Welcome back everyone. So today we're going to be playing with all of the colorful little scales on the skin of the snake. So I've got my practice canvas here because I want you to try a few things first. Now I've experimented, I've used a palette knife, I've used one of my paint movers, I have used my fan brush. I really have tried a number of tools, and in the end my trusty bright square brush and my angle brush gave me the best results. So I'm going to recommend that you try either of these two for this particular exercise. Now, I personally did enjoy the square bright, and this is my 14 artist brush. But like I said yesterday, I think this is a 1/4 inch flat. That is what I'm going to recommend to you guys to get the best results. Alrighty then. Now, the colors that we will need that is on the scales of the skin there is turquoise. We definitely have magenta, and we have our violet, and we also have our floral coral, and we also have a little bit of cadmium yellow. So that is what I've dispensed here in my wet palette. This is still from yesterday's exercise when we did the grey. So it's all good because we might need to neutralize or tone down some of the brightness of these colors and sort of just make them a little bit more muted. I think that's the word I'm looking for. Right, so let's put that aside. I've already dispensed that in my wet palette. So we are just going to play. I want you just to try a few brush marks out, and the whole trick of the trade with these brush marks, or what we're going to be making, is to work on the corner of your brush. So what I mean with that is I'm just going to load, switching over to Afrikaans there. Let's load our brush on the corner there with a bit of paint and just press that corner into the canvas and just make yourself a little bit of a diamond shape there and just leave some negative space open. So I want you to definitely work more on the corner of the brush than on the whole shape of the brush. And then you can also load different colors as you go through this exercise. Now try not to make them too thick. Your application must not be too thick, so do try when you make your little mark to make it once and not to overdo it too much. So this is why we are going to just play with our test canvas. These marks look a little bit better to me as I concentrate to only use the corner of my brush, and then when I run out of a bit of color, I can always come in and just load that corner of my brush again to give me beautiful little scale-like marks. That is what we are practicing. So I have a kitchen towel at hand so that you can clean your brush in between applications. Let's try a turquoise one, loading the corner of my brush like that. And let's try and make a little almost diamond shape, but it's probably a little bit more like a pyramid. So when you make a mark and it's not giving you that full corner, then you know you need to reload your brush. So that is basically the effect that we are playing with. So do give yourself a bit of space and let's practice to make these marks beautifully. So it's roughly, depending on the load on my brush here, I get like 4 chances to make a nice little mark before I need to reload. Okay, so we're going to rinse that off. So now that we sort of know how we're going to make this mark, we can switch to our actual canvas. And what I'm going to encourage you to do, forgive me for bumping my camera. I just want to get my reference material that I stuck there, because I'm going to just show you what I'm going to do now. If you look at the scales of your snake, turn it upside down, and then you will notice that the scales move in a direction down the body of the snake. Now, in order to make our brush mark in a way that's going to make sense, we're going to have to sort of start at the bottom and work our way to the top. And then when we turn the painting around, your marks will face the right direction. This is particularly more relevant here on the, on the neck of the cobra. So I thought that would make life a little bit easier, and it's always a good trick for me to just get out of my logical thinking, critical left brain that wants to take charge and wants to sort of make sense of this exercise. There's no sense to this exercise. So let's go ahead and turn our canvas upside down as well as our reference material. I'm going to put the 2 here so that you guys can see where I'm working. And I'm going to get my square brush, and the first few colors that I notice here on my reference material, starting right here in the back of the snake, there's a lot of blues and purples. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this blue color that I've left, which is my Phthalo Blue, and I'm going to sort of mix it a little bit into my gray that we played with yesterday. That's going to lighten it and tone it down a little bit. I'm going to bring in a bit of my black. Black is always a great tool to just mute some colors down so that they're not so vibrant. So it's still blue, but it's a little bit more of a gray blue. That feels nice to me. And in fact, I'm going to add a drop of violet to this as well. So it speaks to the color that we mixed yesterday, but it's a lot darker. So I'm just going to make a few marks like that. Here we go. It doesn't have to look exactly like the snake. Let's just give ourselves a nice angle here. We sort of want some of the background color to shine through, and we're also still going to do some line work. Okay, so I see a little bit of turquoise showing up in this blue here, and you can let them cover each other almost like a scale. I'm literally just seeing whatever shows up here for me. Starting to move a little bit into a violet mixture there, and the violet has a little bit of magenta to it. So I didn't even rinse my brush because these are complementary colors. In other words, they are sitting next to each other on the color wheel, and they are working with each other. Just using the corner of my brush, moving a little bit more into the pink. Let's add a bit of white there, just to brighten this up a little bit. That was maybe a bit much. If you've mixed something and it's just not working, instead of adding more and more paint to it, just wipe your brush, get some of that color off there, and let's try again. There we go. So we've got some pink here, and it's okay to go over some of your other sections. And we can do a number of layers with this. I see there's a little bit more of a pinky, corally kind of shade showing up here. And it's okay if these colors mix into each other. That's basically what we are doing. Now I'm reminding you again, you are not a Minolta photocopy machine, so please give your perfectionism a break. When your marks don't look at all like the reference material, it's okay. It's not supposed to look exactly like the reference material. It's supposed to be a painting of a print. So give yourself a bit of space there in your mind. Don't be too hard on yourself. Let's just play and allow these colors to emerge on the canvas. So I just used whatever is on my brush here just to add a little bit of violet to the mix. And I'm skipping areas where we will come in with the yellow. The yellows and the warms is a little bit more towards the outside. These little marks here are getting more and more dark and more to the purple, but I'm adding the magenta to my purple to keep it more towards the red violet. So I'm sort of aiming with the corner of my brush into these vacant spots. Let's add a bit of blue to this purple. And it's okay if they don't match the color exactly. We're still going to come in and put the shadows in later. Up here it's quite dark. Now you can just clean up your little line there. That's awesome. So while we have these colors on our brush, we're starting down at the bottom on the left hand side again with some of the blues, deeper blues. And then it becomes a little bit more purple. I'm also constantly reminding myself to just work on the toe of my brush. Let's add a bit more magenta. Nice. Maybe a little bit more to the pink side. There we go. A little bit to the coral over here. Nice. Okay, I'm going to wipe that because the coral, when it mixes with the blue and the purple, it can look a little bit more towards the mud side because it's opposing colors. Getting back into the purple with a bit of magenta. as it gets a little bit darker as I work my way to the top. Let's rinse. Nice. Get a clean brush. Now I want to get into these yellows, but the yellow is not pure yellow. The yellow is toned down quite a bit. So I'm going to use a bit of white to just lighten my yellow a little bit. And then I'm going to just use a little bit of this violet to tone it down, to give it a little bit more of a golden hue, so it's not as bright as the pure cad yellow. I'm going to add a little dash of this fluoro coral just to warm it up again. So it gives us almost a golden beigey kind of yellow. I'm going to make little marks here on the outside perimeter of my snake and bring some of that yellows and just make little marks like so. Okay, the same on the other side. I see a few marks here. Just playing on the corner of my brush. Right, I like this yellow on here. I'm going to go into my turquoise so we get a nice mixture of the two, because I see some of the yellow turquoise showing up here. Make some pretty marks. See a bright turquoise here next to this coral color. Right, let's rinse off. It's just a dance. It's a dance of little flecks of color. Just trust the process. I know it doesn't look exactly like the painting, but it will all make sense a little bit later. I'm going to use this Phthalo Blue and I'm going to bring in some of my black. I want it quite dark. I want a nice dark blue. It's maybe too dark. Let's add a little bit of the white to just brighten it a little bit. I'm going to add a bit of turquoise here. So it's like a steel grey blue kind of color. And working with colors that's not as bright helps to just tone down some of the colors. We're still going to do plenty of shadow work, just working these little flecks in here. It's just giving us a bit of texture to play with. And I'm also going to bring in some of these grayish blue in between here. Maybe to the outside perimeter. Nice. Okay. I'm going to rinse my brush. There's plenty of paint in my brush. It needs a good scrub. So I always have 2 canisters of water next to me. One for rinsing paint and one for clean water. There we go, we've got a clean brush now. So now I'm going to look at the skin and I'm going to try and do the same exercise that I have here. And just create some space for myself so that you guys can see what I'm mixing, and you can also see the upside down reference material. Okay, let's start with the lower part. Plenty of violets there, that's very grayed down. I'm going to add a drop of water here. I'm going to use a bit of my black and go into this old mixture of mine that has a lot of white in it and bring my violet in there. So we have a little bit of a grayish violet tone that's much darker than the background that we did, maybe a bit more violet. Let's add a dash of yellow just to bring it down a bit so it's not too vibrant. So you were looking for like a dirty, mauvey kind of color. Right. Let's make a few marks here. Here's where a crystal is going to stand, so it's a nice place to just test it a little bit. I think that's great. And again, I'm not trying to make it perfect. I'm just trying to bring in some texture with a bit of variety. We're still going to do lots of shadows and other marks over it. So just bring in some of this color. I see this color over here as well, but it's much smaller. So I'm going to use the top part of my brush now. And I'm just going to try to use the corner of my brush. Wick, 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 wick. Sometimes I make noises to go with the action I'm trying to make, especially if it's something I repeat. And maybe some of it here as well. Dab, 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 dab. We definitely have some down here as well. Just breaking up that very bright first coat that we did. Okay, I need to freshen up my blue because I did quite a lot of grey mixtures there in my blue. So I'm going to freshen up a pure blue, which is my Phthalo Blue. Let's bring some of that Phthalo Blue into this mixture here. So I didn't rinse my brush. I've still got that purplish grey on there, and I'm adding some blue to the mix now. There's a bright blue spot. I'm just sort of looking where I see some of this color, and then I'm just going to go ahead and place it there. Right. I'm going to build in a little bit brighter purple. I haven't rinsed my brush, so that blue and everything that I've done before is still on here, and I'm adding some violet to it. Lots of violets down here. I'm going to rinse my brush now. I'm going to switch to the turquoise and blues. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a little bit of that yellow on my brush because I feel it just brightens up the turquoise. So I see some turquoise here. And some turquoise there. And then we have some beautiful turquoise here in the middle. It's okay if you go over a line of something, please don't panic. It's all going to add to the beauty of it later. And I see some turquoise over here. So it's going to look like the light is catching these scales in an interesting way. Okay, let's rinse. Right, I see there's a nice bright green, so I'm going to use my Phthalo Blue, just a little bit here, and I'm going to add some Cadmium Yellow to it. That should give me a nice green. Let's add a bit of white to brighten it, and white. I hope you guys can see my little mixture here. I'm going to add a bit of turquoise to it, a bit more yellow. I want like a apple green, but I'm too lazy to go fetch one. There we go. Just a little bit more towards the green side. Let's add a little bit more blue. There we go. Definitely greener than the turquoise. So I see some green here next to these turquoise. Here we go. Right, let's rinse that. Okay, now let's jump to the yellows. Again, I'm going to bring in some of my Cadmium Yellow into this toned down mixture that we made. I'm just looking at where I see some of these yellows. My yellow is still very bright, but it's okay, we can tone it down as we go. Let's add a bit of this violet to it to just mute it a bit. Here's some bright little corners. And over here as well. Nice. Just going back into my little line there. Just connect some of them. Nice. There's a bright yellow spot I see there. Right, let's make a little bit of an orange mixture. I'm going to add some of this floral coral to this toned down mixture of mine. Let's try and make a nice orange, but it's a very muted orange. It's not a bright orange. You can always add a bit of magenta to that. Yellow and magenta will make a beautiful orange if you don't want to use your orange. There we go, just a nice muted, it's not a loud orange. And then I just sort of dab where I see that color a little bit here and there. I see some here. And I see some here. Nice. Let's see, here I see some orange. I'm just going over the whole area to see where I sort of notice this color in general and where can I add some of it that will contribute to the overall effect of the snake. Skin. Many words. I'm rinsing my brush. I'm going to go into the magenta. Tone it down a little bit. What would tone magenta down a bit? It's opposite of magenta is green, so let's use some of this green just to mute it a little bit. Maybe a little bit of black just to tone it down a bit so it's not so bright. There we go. Like a dirty mauvey kind of magenta. Let's get some of this color in here. You can be seeing here a bit. Nice. Alrighty. Okay, now I want us to mix like this almost earthy color. So it's got some of this violet base again. So I'm bringing in my violet. And I'm going to add quite a bit of yellow to this. And maybe a bit of black just to mute it down so it's not so bright. That feels better. So it's like a greyish neutral color. Neutral colors help other colors appear a bit more vibrant. So I'm just going to work some of these diamonds in here. Be careful to try and not go into your nebula. Stay in your snake. And I'm just using the corner of my brush as best I can. And you definitely see some of this neutral color up here as well. So I'm just dancing in between some of the other colors. Tone that down a little bit, and if you go over your line, you can always just wipe it off while it's wet. We see some of this color here on the turn of this snake shape, maybe into this corner as well. This is giving us a nice neutral darker shape. I'm going to add some of it here just for color harmony. It is our diamond snake after all. I'm rinsing my brush. Let's mix a darker grey. So I'm going to use my black and I'm going to bring in my white. This time definitely more black than white. And I'm going to bring in a little bit of blue to cool it down. That's nice. Yes. And I'm just looking at these cool greys that's a bit darker. And I'm still just using the corner of my brush. So it's all about repetition and pattern. But I'm trying to let some of the other colors speak through. So I'm not covering it all up. I'm sort of aiming for the very light spots as well. I know we're going to still put in shadows and everything. Just breaking up some of these impressions, going around the bottom side there, playing on the corner of my brush. Same here, right down in that turn of the snake's body. I'm just going to break that up. Awesome. I think we are doing well. I'm using that grey and I'm going into my white to mix something much lighter. A very, very light grey. And I see some sparkles over here. And on the outside there. It was a little bit of a thicker paint moment there. There we go. I see some sparkles here. Hope you guys can see. See some bright moments there. It's all gonna make sense soon. I promise you. Don't panic. Let's just make that a little bit more diamond-like. Right on this perimeter. Here we go. Think of sparkles on the water. It's also just little sparkles, reflections. You see some brighter moments up here. I'm going to leave the snake head for another episode, as well as the body, while we're playing with the snake skin here and just familiarizing ourselves with some of these techniques. I think we're at a very, very good place. So let's turn this around and look at what we've created. There we go. Let me just free my reference material. Right. So now if we observe, we see that we've managed to place and block in some of the colors that we will notice on the snake skin. And the texture and the actual dividing lines that we see here is what we will do later to again bring some definition into the shape. But it's helpful to just low down a little bit of color where we see some of those reflections just to start the process. It is going to be a number of layers before we get there. So please don't feel overwhelmed. Again, it's a good opportunity for you to check in with yourself. It is a mindful practice. So when frustration arises because it's not looking the way mine is looking or your reference material, stop, take a deep breath, let it go, and remind yourself that you are here to play and you are here to create, and trust the process. We say that because eventually, after a number of steps that still has to come, it will all come together and you will enjoy what you are creating. So just trust me as I guide you through this process, and give yourself a little bit of grace, breathe, and just enjoy, because we're still going to do a number of things to it before it's going to look like our reference material. So get some rainbow color out, play with the corner of your brush, have some fun, and this is all part of the magic, because sometimes when you just place a color like that, later in your painting you're going to go, oh my word, when did that happen? And it's just the right little magic moment that you are hoping for. So here we go, people. Have some fun. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye for now.